Want to make your brand great again? Or simply make your brand? Go check out our sponsor, SpotlightDesign.com now. That's SpotlightDesign.com now.
Welcome to the CHYE in partnership with COL Live K-Factor podcast with your host, Rabbi Yehoshua Wordy, director of CHYE. Each week we bring you interviews with amazing Jewish entrepreneurs sharing their challenges and successes. Their stories will inspire you to make the Keli to take your business aspiration to the next level. Rabbi Wordy with the CHYE K-Factor podcast. I'm super excited today to be sitting in WeWork worldwide headquarters with really one of the great stories that I have seen unfold in the last 5 years that I'm running CHYE. And I'm sitting here with Dov Brafman. Dov is the founder of Sharkk, which was a very successful lifestyle brand, which he built up from a little tiny company to a major company, and then successfully exited and is now working in WeWork headquarters on some major initiatives that are going to have a worldwide and global impact. It's really awesome to be sitting here with you, Dov. And I want to take this back to the beginning. I want to go all the way back in time, because much like the crowd that's sitting and listening to this podcast, you went through the yeshiva system, and at some point in time, you got this vision, you started this company, you built it up, and now here you are sitting in WeWork. And so take us back to how to day one, how it got started, and your journey.
Day one. Gosh, where do we start? So, contrary to the popular approach to business in general, where most people start with what is the idea, what's the big idea, what's the big vision, what's the big mission. If you look at most successful companies, small, medium-sized, even some of the biggest ones we know, like Instagram, Facebook, Google, and the rest of them as well. If you look into how they were started, what they were started as, it's very far removed from what it ended up being. And so most of these companies aren't really starting from day one with, here's this big idea we have, let's go and tackle it. That's generally not what we see in the startup world. It's more about a small opportunity that people find today. There's a void that people want to fill, whether it's a void within their personal life, within a market that they see, and it's about them jumping on that specific opportunity. And so starting out, it was never, for me at least, there was never an idea. There was never a big idea. There was never a big vision. I didn't know what those things mean. And I'm still learning what a mission means, what bringing value to the world actually means. And that's an ongoing learning process. And so it's very retroactively, it's very nice and, easy to tell a beautiful story of how, I woke up one morning and I had this wonderful idea, but that's not generally how it works. For me personally, it was about yeshiva wasn't working out for me. There was a big void in my life that I needed to fill from a time standpoint, from a fulfillment and meaning standpoint, productivity standpoint. And I just looked at what's right in front of me, what I can do today, which at the time was going to the library and reading books, spending time on the computer to educate myself and to just learn about the big world around me. And that, for me, that was the opportunity that I jumped on, and that was the starting point to that kind of the starting point of the entire journey.
Right. So take us in. So at what point, from reading all these things, how did that lead to your journey where you started your own company?
So it started out with researching and learning about the whole online world. At that time, eBay was, the popular thing that everybody was kind of focused on. And so even just using that as an example and reading up on all different forms of marketing and selling online and sourcing product. And, when you're starting out with that lack of knowledge, It's amazing how literally every sentence you read is an educational process, because every word that you're going through, you have to understand what that means, connecting all the dots. And most of that education wasn't even about ideas, strategies. It was just really understanding the way the world works, that I haven't been exposed to in the past. And so even when I talk about business books and the books that people read, it's never been about strategy. It's never been about step one, step two, step three. It's if you're hungry, if you're motivated, if you're passionate, if you want to do something, you read these books to help shape the way you see the world, help shape the way you think, and just start a thought process, but never as a exact roadmap or an exact strategy, because no one can really tell you exactly what to do, right? You got to own your own journey, your own process, and you got to go through it to get somewhere. But things like that help start.
Practically then, so it sounds like at first you were just selling things on eBay, random.
Yeah, so it started with that. Then it started to not having any money or resources to do anything. It started with connecting with other online sellers and distributors for different types of products, and approaching them and saying, let me sell your product online. Once I sell it, I will, essentially the model of drop shipping. Once I sell it and I get the money from the customer, I'll buy it from you and you ship it directly to the customer. So I don't have to lay out any money and I keep the profit. And that was obviously the only way to start without any actual money. And so I started out that way with, selling some product online, still doing it out of the library. This was, before I...
Was there a particular type of product that you focused on, or you were just grabbing any opportunity that passed your way?
I was doing some clothing for some time, which was a mix of like closeouts from different major retailers that myself and some friends were getting our hands on. They were just coming, pallets with messy boxes of just random stuff. We were doing some, finding some sales at different stores like Century 21 in Morristown, and selling some shoes and random things like that. Some clothing displays for retailers, various different products. And
so you were hustling.
Yeah, and it was always about the opportunity right in front of me, seeing the opportunity, recognizing it, and jumping on it. And that's always been the journey. It's never been about following a specific roadmap. It's always been about being flexible, being very brutally honest with yourself, getting comfortable with failing, and pivoting as needed and taking advantage and jumping on opportunities.
And most probably a tenacity and a determination that definitely had the drive.
Well, yeah, when you don't really have anything to fall back on and there's no other option, there's no, education to get into the workforce, right? So your best bet is going to be an entry-level job with very little room for growth. There's really no other choice. And if that doesn't motivate you, then nothing negative about that type of person. It's just a different type of person. But for me, not having other options was the biggest motivation, because you get to a point where you realize nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody in the world will care about what your mommy thinks of you, and the fact that she thinks you're the greatest and most talented person in the whole world. And you either create something or you get lost, unfortunately, with a lot of the people that...
No, it's very true. It's really something that everybody really needs to think about. So take us along the journey now. You're selling all this product on eBay and other channels. Yeah. How did that lead to starting Sharkk?
So being involved in that world, started learning a lot about selling online, about marketing, about customer service, about that whole world, and slowly started shifting to communicating with people in China that were involved in some factories, and realizing that, wow, like I just, a year before, 6 months before, I thought I discovered a whole new world, and now discovering China in a way that I never knew existed. Even just learning that all products come from, most of the products in the world come from China was fascinating. But then actually being able to talk to them and start looking at different random product and started getting some small shipments in, selling it online as well. And then in that process, you start to look.
So this was white label stuff. You were making your own product.
So this was even before there was a brand. And so, and this was before the Amazon rush, when, tons of people were doing private label. So there were very little resources out there. Right now, there's a lot of courses and there's platforms to help with the process and all these cool programs. This was before all of that. And so just taking action and starting to get the product in without knowing anything, that's where the entire process and brand and everything was, and even just values was built. Because as you start, you realize, oh, there's competition. How do I stand out? I got to put a name on it. I got to put a brand on it. What does a brand mean? What types of values does that mean? What do I have to live up to? What kind of promises do I make? You start to realize the importance of every bit of communication when it comes to customer service. So I've personally done customer service for over 2 years. So thousands of communication, which I think was the best thing I've ever done in my life. That's probably a whole different conversation on communication and leadership skills. But doing that nonstop was the best learning opportunity for me in general, and has absolutely changed me as a person and the way I go through day-to-day life. And so learning about all those important things as they're needed, and then being a little more intentional and proactive about it, kind of formed into a brand, into a presence, into...
So what was your first Sharkk product?
I think the first one was these really junky and horrible looking iPad keyboard, like leather keyboard cases that were fake leather, and 50% of them had issues and weren't working. Some of them got stopped at customs. It was interesting learning experience, but that's how I learned everything, was by actually doing it. So the option was to try to have everything figured out and then do it, or just do it and see what comes up and then figure it out as it comes in. So I remember the first time learning about importing and customs when a shipment got confiscated because it didn't have made in China labels, right? And so all these things were just constant, ongoing learning experience. And so with time, it kind of, the focus stayed on electronics, started building good relationships in China, and working on high quality, good, valuable products.
So tell us a little bit, some of Sharkk products made it national. They were sold in national chains. Tell us a little bit how you were able to pull that off. How did you get your product to become a nationally recognized product? So
it was a very guerrilla style effort in terms of the entire sales process. Obviously the online platforms, but going out to retailers and getting the meetings with them and pitching to them was a very humbling experience.
Let me just interrupt you. This path of going, crossing over from online into retail was a path that you navigated on your own?
Yeah, navigated on our own. We built the necessary partnerships for it with distributors, with people that have access to retailers. And we never fully mastered it. which I'm completely comfortable saying. It is a very complex world, but a fascinating one, and has definitely shaped a lot of the way we see the whole retail world and some of the things we're working on now over here, and how closer to our exit. And a big reason for the exit was different initiatives that we've been working on that rethink the way retail works, the way products move around the world, the way manufacturers and brands interact with consumers and the relationship they have. A lot of that perspective has come from these experiences, spending time in China, sitting with buyers from major retailers and distributors, and really seeing what the struggles for Bed Bath & Beyond, for Best Buy, for a lot of these big retailers are, what the struggles for a lot of distributors are, understanding the manufacturing businesses in China, and also obviously being on that front end of it where we were dealing with marketing, branding, connecting with human beings and understanding their needs, their wants, what they respond well to and what they don't, really helped, not just for me, for our entire team, shape and form the way we see the world moving. And that would allow us to make a very intentional decision that we, first of all, definitely want to put ourselves in a position to be relevant in 5 and 10 years. But even more than that, we want to be a part of creating the future of what the world will be like in 5 and 10 years. And so that goes back to a lot of these things I would never think of on day one. But as you go through the process and as you learn and as you just experience life more, you start to form these visions and values and ideas, and you have more to run with.
So first of all, that's amazing. But I want to stop your story for a second, because you're hitting on something. A very large percentage of our community sells online. You were deeply enmeshed in that world, and you described that whole ecosystem. And if you had to share wisdom with young online sellers today, you wanted to share with, we'll keep it short. If there was one thing you wanted to tell an online seller, as somebody who had been so deeply enmeshed in that world, that they should really know, what would you want to tell them?
So that's definitely one of the most common questions that comes up from within the community. The response is always different. And the main reason for that is I usually, even though the person asking generally didn't ask for it, I self-appoint myself as their temporary life coach, which is definitely intrusive and spam, but I do it sometimes either way, and kind of take a step back to, like, why Amazon? Why the products? Meaning, I want to understand the person better before giving advice. To give advice on, different tricks on Amazon and the best way, that there's plenty of people that can give way better advice than me. Even on my team, there's people that I would sit them down with that are the masters at this stuff. But for me, just looking at the person and trying to understand what they want to do with their life, what they love doing, what's valuable to them, what's meaningful to them, and then how that can tie into what they're working on, or maybe they should be doing something else that would be more meaningful to them, and not just jumping into Amazon and private label because that's all they see in front of them. That generally is my focus when that question comes up. And so it's important to understand, what that business is, what it means, what the goal is, what the desired outcome is. And it could be something as simple, like I said before, it's just the only opportunity right in front of me and I want to jump on it. And definitely do it. Just do it without knowing necessarily what you're doing. Make sure you be open to learning from everything that's going on. Ask. A lot of people, for some reason, are shy of asking or not so confident with asking, it kind of, makes them feel like they look like they don't really, have their life together or something of that nature. Ask the people around you. Most people that you look up to are actually accessible, right? But you have to ask and you have to approach. And people actually that have had success in certain areas actually like helping other people and giving advice only to people that will actually run with it and will do something with it so they don't feel like they're wasting their time. But people love that.
Very much. That's been the experience with us at CHY. We have a whole mentor program, including yourself as one of our great mentors, and we've always found that as the experience. But I want to just ask you to share something else. One of the most fascinating things I found about your company, Sharkk, we've run for the past 2 years, and God willing, we're going to run it again this year. We do a jobs fair where we try to give opportunity for young people in the community trying to get into their first early stage jobs. And both years that we've done it, Sharkk has participated. And there was always a stark contrast between the way the other companies pitched and the way Sharkk pitched. Other companies stood up and said, this is the position that we have. We're looking to fill this and this role. Anyone that feels qualified, please see us. And then the Sharkk guy would stand up. In this particular case, it was Mayor Shemtov, and he's like, okay, we're Sharkk. You tell us what you think you could bring to the table, and we'll find a way to fit you into the company. And it was like this total paradigm shift in the way you presented yourself, and you had a very unique company culture going, and you had this amazing thing where you brought so many of the young people in our community into the company. You absorbed them, and you harnessed their talents. And it was fascinating for me, and I always wanted to get to know it from the inside. So tell us a little bit how did you come to that company culture that, it's really fascinating. I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on that.
In terms of what the company culture turned into, which was definitely something unique and interesting, initially was not so intentional, right? So as much as I would like to take credit for it and, being the mastermind of it, I do think it was a result of previous experiences in the way, which was at the time was only school, and the way the typical classroom was set up and the structure of it and how it didn't work for me. I think the way I viewed management and culture within a workspace was a result. And that actually didn't really connect for me until I recently spent time in a Montessori school. I spent a day there. And looking at the approach that's taken to how kids are not taught, but how we help them learn, and how we trust them and how they're responsible for their day, and seeing that, because I was there just out of curiosity, and seeing that and connecting that and realizing that the principles are exactly the same as the things that I found valuable in terms of culture and office environment were right in line. I think that's when I connected the dots, that it's a result of some negative experiences that I've had in the past. And so creating a culture where, and I learned this more from the team, this wasn't something I figured out. One of the things along those lines, when we had our exit, one of the key messages that I made sure was very clear in terms of, next chapter, was that Sharkk made me and built me more than I built it. And I worked for the people, for the team, more than they worked for me.
That's beautiful.
That whole, it was a very type of flat environment where anybody with something to contribute. We'd call our meetings debates because everybody's opinion matters, and nobody's my perspective, somebody else's doesn't hold any more weight than the other person's. My job happens to be to have to make the final decision, but in a conversation, if it's done in the right way, we should all be able to come to the proper decision together. But going back to the perspective on people within a work environment and that job fair approach you mentioned, we've always viewed the asset of the company as the people, right? Which was apparent at the exit, right? Because it was definitely more of an acqui-hire than an acquisition. And the idea was always invest in the people, help build the people, we all build each other. And in 5 years, we could be in a completely different business. We could be selling real estate, selling cars, or have a restaurant, but the team will still stick together because that's the asset. It's not a piece of machinery. It's not a piece of software or a piece of equipment. And so the focus has always been on the people. And the idea was build the people and the people will build the company.
So first of all, that's awesome and amazing. And anyone that's listening to this, I think, Dov has always mentioned to me that he's willing to speak to people. Companies should look into this as a way to work with their employees. It's fascinating and amazing. Time is running out just because we're limited to how long we could go with this podcast. I want to ask you a few quick questions.
I think you got to do a whole nother one with me or with other people on the topic of culture and communication and leadership. Because what we just discussed
is awesome.
Just
100%. No question. I'm just going to ask you a few quick questions, short fire. Like we have 5 minutes to sort of wrap this up. So number one, what was your number one most successful product that you had on Sharkk, and how did that go?
There's no short answer here because I'm going to take it in a complete different. You're looking for me to say a specific Bluetooth speaker.
No, I'm just looking for you to share a story.
I get more focused on the business was the specific products we were selling were just like a part of it. The actual business was, again, I always go back to the people, and that was always the best investment. That was always the best part of the business. That was always the best product, and the most rewarding and valuable, and still is. And it wasn't about a Bluetooth speaker, some other type of product. It was always about creating a team of people that can do anything they put themselves to and their minds to.
Well, there's no question that definitely shows very clearly the team you built and in Sharkk, and the fact that the whole team transitioned over here. It's just a testament to the amazing culture. So let me ask you another short fire question. What was your number one biggest challenge in all your years of business? What was a major challenge that came your way that you faced, and how you overcame it?
I think a few things, 2 things. First biggest challenge was just myself. Initially, I was very low self-esteem and confidence, antisocial, reserved, introverted, and developing the skills to be able to communicate to people, inspire, and get people excited to sell, to buy, to communicate ideas, to build people, was a very brutal process, and it's ongoing, and a lot of work. And for me, building myself up to that point was definitely the biggest challenge, just from where I was coming from, where it's been a lot of, lack of significance or individuality and suppressed talent. That was the biggest one. The other one was health, where for a very long time, I correlated the idea of hustling and working hard with the amount of hours spent in an office. And so I would push myself to the limits, and I got to a point where I was essentially burning out, and it was impacting my health in many different ways. And I kind of had to pull back and say, what's the long-term plan over here? What needs to change so that I don't burn out when I'm 30? I could continue to do what I love to do in an impactful and successful way. But kind of taking that step back and having to say, okay, if we forget about what the world considers a hustler, and the whole talk of how many hours you spend in the office. What do I need to do to be able to do what I want to do? That was a big shifting point for me, a challenge to.
That's great, and thank you for sharing that. So, very quickly, what's your number one? If you had to recommend a number one business book, what book would that be?
Good to Great.
Jim Collins.
Jim Collins.
Okay. Number two, tell us one amazing business mentor in your life.
For me, the mentors are usually the opposite side. A lot of people go to the successful people. I think the people that are failing every day and still in that initial mindset, and those are the people that, for me, are the mentors and the people that inspire me. I'm closer to them than I am to the people at the top of the world. And so I relate to that more. And that's really where the real entrepreneurship is, not the way the world uses it, but it's right over there. And that is inspiration. That is life. That's great. We say, Mikol Malamdai Hiskalti. So you learn from your peers, not just from the amazing people. Last thing, tell people how they could get in touch with you and learn more about you and your business. If you want to get in touch with me and you're hungry enough to do it, you'll find a way.
Thank you so much, Dov. And we're going to have to continue this.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
Rabbi Werdy, CHYE K-Factor Podcast. Thank you for listening to the CHYE in partnership with COL Live K-Factor Podcast with your host, Rabbi Yehoshua Werdy. We're looking forward to bringing you more entrepreneurs to share their amazing stories. See you next week.